Hi, welcome to today's video. Today I'd like to share with you the books I read in September. I got through 10 books this month, which is basically the best reading month I've ever had, but caveat, they were all audiobooks. I don't know why, I found it really hard this month in particular to read a physical book. I am on holiday, so I'm just doing whatever, and audiobooks have been great, especially for car rides and at the beach. I can just keep them in and keep going. I can move around. It's been so good. But we have a lot to get through, so let's get into it. Of the 10 books I read this month, 5 were rereads and 5 were new to me. Some of them have been on my TBR for a very long time, but yeah. So the first book I read, I started reading physically months ago, but finished on the 2nd of September via audiobook, and that is Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. I've absolutely loved the show, and I thought I'd finally get around to reading the book, and it was incredible. It was so good. I can totally understand why it's had this such strong following for 30 years. It deserves it, and all I do is think about those characters, book and show, to be honest. I do see them as kind of separate, but it was just so good. If you've never heard of Good Omens, the story follows an angel and a demon trying to stop the apocalypse, which is pretty fun. As soon as I finished reading it, before even, I knew I wanted to look into both authors' other work, and I mean, they're both such iconic fantasy writers that I feel like I have to. I do plan on starting with Neil Gaiman. I think that his stories are more accessible to me right now because he does have a lot of children's fantasy, so I'm gonna start there and see. I'm really excited about that, actually. I think I'm probably gonna start with Coraline because I'm familiar with the story, but not super familiar. The next book that I listened to in September was a reread, and that was Six of Crows. I decided it needed to be reread. This is my 3rd reread of the year, which is maybe too many, but I'm always thinking about the crows and it felt right. Six of Crows follows 6 teens in a gang going on a heist. It is super fun, but also kind of heartbreaking. It's just so compelling. The characters are all really lovable, and I just think about them all the time. I think Leigh Bardugo is really good at creating characters that you just have to love. All of the crows, none of them are my least favorite crow. It's really good. If you haven't read Six of Crows, please read it. The next 3 books that I listened to were all rereads. They're all from the same series, so I'm going to talk about them all together, but also separately because I have different feelings about each of them. And that is the Montague Siblings trilogy by Mackenzie Lee. That is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, and The Nobleman's Guide to Scandal and Shipwrecks. I always get it confused. The Gentleman's Guide was my favorite book. When I was 16, I read it so many times. I just loved it. The characters were really lovable, and the plot was just fun. It's historical fiction, there's romance in there, but there is also just the right amount of fantasy. It was just a good time. I hadn't read these books in a while. I was worried that I wouldn't love them as much as I used to, and I have to say, they were still really enjoyable. The Gentleman's Guide was just as fun as always. I forgot how much I loved The Lady's Guide. The characters in that are so wonderful, and it's just really nice to see women being friends and just supporting each other. I don't know, it was a good time. You also see the main character growing from not being like other girls to realizing that there's nothing wrong with the other girls, and it was just quite lovely. I didn't remember anything about The Nobleman's Guide other than who the main character was in relation to the main characters of the other books, but as I got reading, I remembered a lot more, and it was really good. I think it hit me harder than the other books, maybe because I didn't remember it, but the main character was very relatable in a concerning way, and the story itself had a lot more heart than I was expecting. The next book had been on my TBR for years. I'm such a fan of the author's other work, and I can't believe I finally read it, but that is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. I love Hank Green. Who doesn't love Hank Green? The Vlogbrothers and basically everything else he does, he has like 50 million jobs. I don't know, man. I don't know what he actually like does. He does a lot, and I'm a fan of a lot of it. But this book was incredible. Like, I knew it must be pretty decent. Like, I expected Hank to be a pretty good storyteller, but I was not expecting this book. The book follows a woman who becomes a social media star after posting a vlog with what she thought was an art installation, but is actually a robot alien thing. It was incredible. That's the pitch that I had heard, but it's really about like humanity, and also is like a really horrifying look at what is probably going to happen within the next few years, because it's already kind of happening, and it was kind of difficult to read such a clear reflection of our world within this sci-fi. Another thing that was not surprising, but I guess a little shocking, was how political it was. Based on Hank's like online identity and like what we see of him, I expected him to be, you know, like left-leaning politically. This book absolutely goes off. Hank is not holding back his beliefs. I know, like, yes, it is a fictional world, but it reflects our world in such a specific way that there is no hiding his political beliefs. And honestly, it was so good to see. I was reading it and I just remember messaging a friend being like, since when did Hank get this political? Like, I know he's gotten pretty angry before, like when things happen that, you know, relate to politics in the end, he's gotten angry and passionate online, but this book was intense and it was wonderful. And if you haven't read Hank's work, I really recommend it. The next book I listened to was Crooked Kingdom. I was putting it off. I had about 3 chapters to go and I just couldn't let myself finish it because I didn't want to hear it. You know, if you know the end of that book, I feel like it makes sense, but I just wasn't in the mood. It was like, I'm not gonna lie on a beach and read that, and I'm not gonna like be walking around an ancient site and listen to that. So I decided to leave it for, it was like a week or so. I put it off and listened to An Absolutely Remarkable Thing instead. But yes, Crooked Kingdom is great. I'm not going to talk about it because of spoilers to Six of Crows, but yeah, the Six of Crows duology is so good. I've talked about it so much. Please read it. The next book I read was A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green, which was also really good. I think this book was a little harder to read for me. It was just like, it was a lot of, I don't even know how to talk about it. It was very complicated technical stuff about like crypto and like very like online stuff. I love mocking the crypto bros. They're the boys and their fake little money. But I think this book was a terrifying view of the world and a terrifying portrayal of, I mean, it's definitely like the next few years of our lives. This book was horrifying. Like, I think, like, I know this book is a sci-fi, but I really think it should be classed as horror. It was a nightmare. The next book I read was very different in tone, and that is A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. I loved this book so much. I knew I'd enjoy it. I wasn't expecting to love it, but it was so fun. Sometimes you just need a historical romance in your life. I do love historical romances. There is something so good about like historical clothes. Honestly, like, history itself is a nightmare, but they really had something. They had something right with the fashion. I don't know why, like, I didn't just use my brain, but I was about a quarter way into the book and I thought it was ending, and I just didn't think to check how much was left of the audiobook. I genuinely was sitting there for like hours listening to this book being like, but the climax already happened, like what's happening? It was like the start of the book still. I'm just an idiot. If you have any interest in historical romance, read it. It was really good. If you have any interest in romance in general, read it. Whenever people talk about romance, people want to know if it was spicy. There was like one pretty spicy scene, probably the best written that I've read in a while. But yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I want to read this author's other work. The last book I'm going to talk about is one that I'm actually still currently reading, but I have like less than 3 hours of the audiobook left, so I'm going to talk about it because I've got today and tomorrow still to finish it, and I'm definitely going to finish it, so get to the point. I have to read the title because it's non-fiction and it's got one of those really long titles, but it is Ace, What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society, and the Meaning of Sex by Angela Chen. I've just finished chapter 5, I'm not finished yet, but it is really good so far. Like, I'm usually not very good with non-fiction, but it's bringing together a lot of different perspectives, which is really cool. And it's just enlightening. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. If you have any interest in learning more about asexuality, I really do recommend this book. Again, I can't speak to the whole book, I'm not finished yet, but so far it is in depth, but really approachable. It's told mostly through anecdotes, and so it's not like clinical in the way that a lot of nonfiction can be. It's also so far been really intersectional and talking about how intersectional identity can change an interpretation of an identity. I don't know if I worded that right. But yeah, so far, really enjoying it, learning a lot. It's good. But those are the audiobooks that I've listened to this month. So many, so much story. I have finally caught up to my reading goal, and I'm actually a little ahead right now, which I'm gonna need because I can already feel that I don't think October is going to be a good reading month for me, and in November I'm doing NaNoWriMo, and I find it really hard to read and write at the same time, so we'll see what happens. But yes, those are the books I listened to this month. Let me know what your favorite book that you read this month was. I don't think I can pick a single favorite, but I think on a whim I'm gonna say Hank's books were both really good, and maybe they're my favorites. I don't know. That's all I've got for today. I upload twice a week. You can subscribe to see my future videos. You can like this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.